Da dee da 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 din da ya da din da hi da dee da din da. Good morning, everybody. We are continuing the laws of washing our hands. Very much misunderstood thing that you see a lot of people do it. We always do it. Do we do it right? Yesterday we discussed, just a little review, we discussed the problem of having something like this, which is a vessel which has an elevated side to pour out of, lower here and elevated. And then we also discussed a vessel that has a descending lip, so that one part of the vessel is lower than the rest of the rim. Both of these, you can get them in video, both of these things have the same problem or potential problem, which is that the area which is below the flat level here, this area down here, is not considered part of the vessel, and it's not whole here. And same here, since you can't fill it up to the top here, you can only fill up here. Only this part has the din of the vessel. This part does not. So if you're going to wash your hands and you fill up something like this and you pour, this is maybe not the best one. There you go. You pour like that. You end up pouring out of a vessel that doesn't have the halachic status of a vessel. This part doesn't work. That's what we discussed in chapter 40, number 1 and 2, paragraph 1 and 2. Now we're on to paragraph 3. Let's say you got a vessel which can't stand up on its own. It's got a round bottom. It has to be supported against something. So if you were to put it down, it would pour out. Like there were wine cups. You can see that sometimes. Trendy wine cup, I guess. I don't know why. I've seen it. No bottom. So you have to be holding it. Okay? If it was made this way, originally, it was some wise guy's idea, to be used while it's supported, right? It always is going to be leaning against something. That's how it's constructed. Then it is the halachic status of a vessel. However, if it wasn't made to be used this way, could go in kisui kli. For example, let's say it's the cover vessel that can hold liquid when inverted in that position, was not made for that purpose. So, excuse me. I don't have a picture of this, but imagine you've got a pot, and you know how you have a pot lid that it's arched, the lid of a pot. So if you were to turn it upside down, in theory, you could carry liquid in your pot lid. But if you were to put your pot lid down, it would spill out, right? So because it wasn't made to be used like this, okay? It was made to be a pot cover. Yes, you can carry liquid in it. It's not like, right? You could water your plants. You could take water from the sink, put it somewhere else, right? It does hold water, but because it wasn't made to hold water in this way, it doesn't have the law of kli, of vessel. Shulchan Aruch in 159 goes even further into detail, but for our practical purposes, this really helps to get some clarity on the situation. Daled, shiur hamayim kasher l'shir. How much water do you need for Netilat Yadayim? Kasher l'sha'er b'tzimtzum is difficult to figure out precisely. Okay, why is it difficult? Everything else is so so specific, right? We know how much wine we have to drink on Pesach. Why don't we know how much water? Let's explore, what does he mean by it's not so simple. So I'm going to really focus on this one. So the minimum amount of water that a person should use to wash both hands is the total of 1 revi'is, okay? Which is going to be between 2.9 and 5 fluid ounces. So just for the sake of simplicity, we're going to say 4. We'll split the difference, okay? However, one who uses only this amount of water encounters a lot of halachic issues. If you use at least 4 ounces for each hand. In addition, if you only use the minimum amount, it's difficult to completely cover the surface of the hand. So, in other words, halachically, the amount of water it takes to cleanse the hand spiritually is a revi'is. And if you could, so that's it. It's a revi'is, 4 ounces. But it's hard to get the hand completely covered with 4 ounces in one pour and up to the wrist. So therefore, we want to pour out, I'll call yad maim b'shefa. We want to put out he says, generous amount, like a abundant amount of water on each hand. Ta'amar Rav Chisda, it says, Rav Chisda says in the Gemara in Shabbos, Ana masher meloi chafnai maya. I washed my hands full with handfuls of water. V'havele meloi chafna tevusa, and they gave me from heaven, it is handfuls of prosperity. Now, few questions. Aren't we supposed to just do these mitzvahs for the sake of connecting with Hashem? Right? We're not supposed to do the mitzvah al manas lekabel schar, as it says in Pirkei Avos, right? We're not supposed to do it. And although there are mitzvahs that you get a reward for this world and world to come, we're not supposed to be focused on the reward in heavenly reward, but if we want to honor God and we want to connect with Hashem, and the reward comes on its own. And then also, let's say you wash with tons of water and you don't have any money, so you're going to think, oh, it's not true. The Gemara is not true. So the Mishmur says, listen, Rav Chisda was doing a lot. This wasn't his only avodas Hashem. And maybe he was like on such a level that everything else he was doing was so phenomenal, and this extra midah of chassidus, this extra level of piety to use a lot of water for his hands, that kind of pushed him over into full blessing mode. Whereas most of us have still we're still works in progress. We got a lot to work on. That's one thing. But I have to tell this. It's not a whole story, but it's told that there was once a person who wanted to be very pious with their hand washing, and so they would use a ton of water. Now, this is a time when you didn't have running water in the house, so that means that somebody had to Wasserträger, a water carrier. Somebody had to carry water from the well to your house to fill up your water container. And it came before the Rav, this problem of the town, because I guess there was some shalom bayis issues that were coming up. And the Rav said, you're being pious at the expense of the water carrier, right? So in other words, you think you're being so holy by using so much water, and you're forgetting that that it took somebody effort to go and bring the water to you. And we moral stories, right? Yes, we're supposed to. Now it's interesting. We have a drought now in California, and the question is about this. So here's my take on the drought and washing our hands. First of all, if you don't leave the water running, right, you just fill up the cup all the way to the top, and we'll discuss a cup like this, right, the washing cup, and you do your thing, should have zero concerns that you are potentially contributing to the water shortage. When we have a drought situation, we have to be very careful about bal tashchis, which is needless waste of water. But water used for legitimate purposes, you don't have to worry about that. Okay, we continue with, yes, we have a little bit more time. Number 4. Noitlim tchila yad yamin. We begin with our right hand first, v'achar kach small, and after that left. V'yavo amayim al kol yad, and the water should cover each surface of each hand. Dahainu ad kana shazor, right?
Is that different for a lefty and righty?
We'll explain. Hold on one moment.
Okay.
Lo yisher makam b'li. There shouldn't be any spot on your hands that don't get wet. V'al kain, therefore, yafrid ksas b'etz ba'is. One should separate their fingers a little bit. V'yagbia hem ksas kalfei maila. Right, they should be elevated a little bit and opened a little bit, so that the water can get everywhere. And the tops of the fingers and all around the width, right? You have to get the water needs to be on all parts of the hands and fingers. The water should come over his hands in one, or her hands, one unbroken stream. You shouldn't wash your hands mikli shapiv tsar, has a narrow opening, right? So I have a big open cup. It's easier to pour the water out in one thing. So that if it was a narrow opening, they're concerned that you don't have as much control and the water's just going to all splash out. Should pour, says it's proper to pour on each hand 2 times. Now, the question about the left hand and the right hand, if my memory serves me right, I don't have it in my notes here. You're going to, a person who is a lefty is still going to wash their right hand first. And the Mishnah Berurah rules that you may wash your hands with 2 consecutive acts as pouring as well, as long as there's no interruption at all between them. But he discourages the use of different utensils with narrow openings, right? We explained that. Now, one thing to note when you do this, okay, is some more show and tell. You want to lift up the cup with your right hand, because that is, when you go to do a mitzvah, you want to use, we always start with our right side, which doesn't have to do with, it's not anti-left-handedness, is that has to do with how we understand Hashem in the world and the right and left sides, beyond the scope of today's class. You pick it up with your right hand, But I'm supposed to wash my right hand first, and I have the cup in my right hand. What do? Pass it to my left hand, and then pour it over the right hand. Twice. Pass it back to the right hand, pour it over twice. Okay? So, probably better form would be, right, to have my hand elevated, right? My fingers shouldn't be closed like this. It's a big mistake that sometimes people see is their hands or fists are closed like this. You can't get water in there. So you want to make sure that you get the water all over the hands. And then after you do that, you're going to lift up your hands like this. First, you're going to wipe them together. Okay. You're going to lift them up. Okay. Like it says in Tehillim, Su'u yedechem, raise up your hands. And then we'll say the bracha. In our next class 3 of this series, we're going to go on the bracha. We're going to go a little bit more into the hand washing, a few more details, very, very practical stuff. And I think I got through everything I wanted to do today. We have time for a question.
Is there a reason given why you would do one hand first and the other, like in that order?
We pour over the right hand first because the right side takes precedence in mitzvot.
Okay.
That is.
But if it's your natural instinct is to grab the vessel with your right hand, right?
That's right.
You first grab it with your right hand,
and then you pour it over the right hand.
I see.
So, Rabbi, my hands is very small. I'm a very small person, and I'm sometimes trying to understand how my size relates to the various halachot around how much a person should do with the thing. It sounds with the hand washing that
if you've got very small hands, like children, right? A child doesn't have to use a whole water cup. However, we want to always train children to do things the right way. We don't want to train them to do things in an improper way. So we're always going to train them to fill it up. If you find that you don't need a full container, this is way more than a revis, right? We're talking about 4 ounces was the minimum. We're going to do 8 ounces to be sure. The second pour is because maybe the first pour didn't cover everything. Okay. The second pour is to make sure it all, gets covered. There's another reason why we do a second pour. We'll discuss that tomorrow. Also has to do with tar and tuma. Because if the first pour didn't get everything off, and then the second pour needs to be a separate pour, because as long as the water is still pouring, then the laws of tuma are that it would go from the hand back into the water. So what a person's effectively done is if they go really slow, like they drip over it, that doesn't work. It has to be poured 1 and 2 so that each splash of water that gets on the hand cleans the hand spiritually, right? And they have to be separate pours. There's some people who are very, very pious who use a towel or a rag to hold the thing so that they're to not transfer tuma back to the vessel. And that is going to call it for the day. We're going to continue in our next class, many more details about hand washing. We're going to become worldwide experts, be able to teach everybody. And everybody have.
I guess tomorrow is Fasema. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. If you're following our daily class, tomorrow would be a Friday, and it is Sfas Emes. This, when we return to the Shulchan Aruch for this, it will be